I'm Sam.
And this is Gabe.
And this is Coaster Wars.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Coaster Wars podcast, where most of our podcast continuity is done by accident.
Yep.
Just so you guys know, that joke will come back later in this episode. It'll make a whole lot more sense.
Yeah.
But today we are talking about the one, the only, the kind of the weirdos of the roller coaster manufacturing world that just turned out to be the best. This is one of those things where, like, if B&M peaked in high school, this is like the ugly duck of roller coaster manufacturing in a way.
This is
Rocky Mountain Construction. That's who we're talking about. Yes.
This is that nerdy guy that nobody liked in high school, but then he went off and started his tech company, and now he's a billionaire. So
yes. Turns out he was smarter than all of us, actually.
Exactly. So, but yes, Rocky Mountain Construction, RMC for short. They are a company that we have mentioned so many times it's not even funny. And they are one of definitely our favorite companies, and also a favorite of the roller coastering world in general. And they've made quite a few bangers in terms of roller coasters. So we're here to talk about just what they're all about and what the hell they actually do.
Yes. But to talk about the continuity of our podcast we did by accident, so it turns out in my research, a little bit of research I actually had to do for this episode, RMC got their start building a roller coaster that we talked about in our last episode, Tremors, and is it the other one, Timber Terror? Apparently they've done a lot of work for Silverwood, and that was just a total done by accident thing that we did. So don't think we did that on purpose, because it definitely was not intentional.
We don't try that hard, I promise.
No, we don't. We wish we could say we tried that hard, but we don't.
Yeah. So let's get into the history of this company. So RMC was founded back in 2001 by a man named Fred Grubb and his wife, Suzanne Dedmond. Now, to get...
Aw, look at the cute couple.
Yes, it actually is a very cute, because what happened is to get into Fred Grubb, he was always kind of into construction. He started a construction company with one of his brothers after high school, and unfortunately didn't quite make it, but he kind of stayed in construction. And when he moved to Seattle, he actually was building zoo enclosures, of all things. But his foray into the amusement world began with Silverwood. So they actually hired him to do some rock work for some of their rides. And Gary Norton, the owner of Silverwood at the time, was so impressed with his work, he offered him the position of construction/maintenance director. And that is where he met his wife.
Let's just appreciate that for a second. Okay. This guy was so good at his job that they're like, you know what? Let's just have you run our entire maintenance division. You know, that's how good you are. Like, I just want to point that out.
Gabe used to work in a maintenance department at a paper mill, and he's like, it is a lot of freaking work, so he knows. It's high praise from him.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so as the construction/maintenance director here, this is where he met his wife. Suzanne was at the time the finance director for Silverwood. But when he came into this position, Fred proposed the building of a new wooden roller coaster, and they partnered with CCI, Custom Coasters International, and that's when Timber Terrors was born in 1996. So CCI designed the ride, but Fred Grubb and his entire team was the one that built the roller coaster.
Yeah, and I think that's a common misconception in the roller coaster world, because when we say something is built and constructed and everything designed by Intamin, that's not 100% true, or in this case, CCI, because, you know, some of these companies, especially like an Intamin, is based out of Switzerland, you know, and they're more of the creative side of it, I guess. Yeah. Where, like, what you're talking about is the actual, like, okay, here's the blueprint, now create it, build it, construct it. And you still work with the coaster manufacturer to do that, but you still have to have actual physical labor on the ground doing the work. And that's where a guy like this comes in and helps plans that, and helps, you know, get the actual employees to do what they're supposed to, basically.
Yes. So same thing, a couple years later, he partnered with CCI again, and that's when Tremors came about in 1999, as Gabe said. So as a tidbit here, CCI was so impressed with his construction work on that, they also offered him a job at their company as basically their construction manager. And instead, Fred and Suzanne took a leap of faith, and that is when RMC was officially born. It was, like I said, founded in 2001. Initially, they worked out of their home and they employed about only 10 staff members. They were not well known in the roller coastering world. And so, what they actually did to kind of get their name out there in the beginning is they went to something called IAAPA, which I think stands for the International Association for Amusement Park. I forget what the last A is. It's
Yeah,
IAAPA.
IAAPA is something that has become more and more popular over the years. Like probably back in 2001, it probably wasn't as a big of a deal in the
Yeah.
roller coaster enthusiast world, but nowadays it's where a lot of these massive roller coaster manufacturers debut new designs
Yep.
or they unveil a new ride they're bringing to a certain park, or they unveil innovation, so like maybe a new ride car or just a whole new ride concept altogether, or that's where they basically
Yeah.
show off the best that they have for that year. Is
Imagine
what
a
it is.
convention for anything else. Like even just like there's
Yeah.
Comic-Cons, there's like reptile expos and stuff. This is basically just the amusement version of it. And I actually looked into it because I didn't know what it was, but they have one going on this year in Florida, and I almost went to Gabe. We should see if we could go because that would be
Yeah.
cool.
But usually it's in the off season or the winter
Yeah.
time is when they have this event. And like I said, it's basically to get ready for the upcoming amusement season and what basically each manufacturer is putting out there for new entertainment.
Yes. So RMC, as a little fledgling company that they were, went to IAAPA and they tried to network. And of course, like I said, they weren't very well known. They hadn't really done anything else. So it kind of worked somewhat. In the early days, they had some very small contracts refurbishing some wooden roller coasters. They also built
at Silverwood.
Yes. I was gonna say they also built the water park at Silverwood, and that included the wave pool, the lazy river, and a lot of the supporting structure for the water slides. And then in 2005, they were approached by Intamin to help construct their prefab El Toro, which opened in 2006, which I did not know.
I actually did know that. I
Okay.
actually did know that RMC was constructed to hire that, but again, as a construction company, not as a design company.
Exactly. So Intimate did actually really like their work on that ride. They did then approach them to build T Express, which was another prefab that opened in South Korea in 2008.
It's supposed to be the best of the four of them.
Oh,
by the way, it's T Express. Supposedly it's better than El Toro. Now, obviously, I have not been to. Is it Korea?
Yeah, it's South Korea.
I have not been to South Korea, so I don't know. But supposedly, it is supposed to be the best of the four.
Now, of course, for this tiny little company RMC that hasn't really made a name for itself, it wasn't all smooth sailing. We have the financial crash of 2008. And of course, during this time, there weren't really that many jobs for a small company like RMC. So they made a point to try and diversify so they could still pay their workers a full wage. So they built a zip line. They built a water feature at the Spokane airport. They built a miniature golf course, which, just like a total side note, I would love to say that I got to go to an RMC golf course.
We need to figure out where that is, honestly.
Exactly.
And if it still exists. We don't really know.
I really hope it does. That'd be so cool. So they also erected aircraft hangars, and then they polished cement floors, and they even shoveled snow. So another thing with RMC I think I should point out here is one of the things that they also boast is that they run a non-corporate work structure. So to help really invest in their workers and really make it worthwhile for them to work for a company like RMC. But after this kind of like really rough patch and stuff here, they managed to get their first roller coaster. Now, the story of this is Fred Grubb had come up with the idea for what is now their patented iBox track. If you look at a cross section of this track, like if you literally like cut out a section and you looked at it, it would literally look like an I-beam that you see in construction. And it was basically designed to give a wooden like roller coaster slightly with more longevity, less maintenance, all this kind of stuff. But every time he proposed it, he needed an engineer to basically build this for him or put out plans to help him build this. And everybody told him it was impossible. So enter Alan Schilke. Now he is a roller coaster designer employed at Ride Centerline, which had partnered with Six Flags Fiesta Texas, or over Texas actually, I think, to prolong the life of the Texas Giant. Now, Six Flags was looking for something different that required less maintenance for the Texas Giant, especially considering the size of that roller coaster. It was over 5,000 feet of track. It was one of the wooden giants out there. And when when Alan Schilke heard the idea for the iBox track, he was instantly on board. And the two went to work perfecting the design. And then they pitched it to Six Flags, which took a chance and hired RMC to reconstruct the Texas Giant. Of course, there were challenges along the way. We start with the fact that they only had 15 employees at the same time. And then the second was that their workshop was not, first of all, not even designed, but second of all, not even physically big enough for roller coaster construction, but they made it work. And so the ride debuted on April 22nd of 2011 and was very well received. I figured Gabe could probably talk more about the coaster itself.
And this is usually where you say, and the rest is history.
Yes, pretty much.
No, the new Texas Giant was very innovative at the time because the thought of taking an old dilapidated wooden roller coaster and turning it into basically the best ride experience in the park, it was kind of like how you said, it was not something that people considered as possible. And the other thing that this does, the Iron Horse conversion, is it reduces the cost of adding a new coaster because it does change the layout. So now the whole point of the steel top or of the steel I-beam track being added to the wooden roller coaster is you can emphasize each element. You can emphasize the forces. You can turn a slow, boring turnaround that a lot of wooden roller coasters have.
Just pause really second. The Texas Giant was built by the Din Corporation, which has a reputation for making very boring wooden roller coasters. Anyways.
Yes. But my point is that you could take a boring turnaround element and turn it into an overbanked curve. You could take the valleys of a drop and make it smaller and more compact to make the G-forces more forceful, and then you can take the peak of an airtime hill and make it more compact and make the airtime more forceful, switching it from floater airtime to ejector airtime. And basically the point of this is to speed up the coaster, maybe make it a little taller, make the drop steeper, make it more extreme. And now instead of having to invest this whole bunch of money into a brand new steel B&M roller coaster like a hybrid, you can get basically a similar ride experience out of your old wooden roller coaster. So now you cut the costs of demolishing the coaster, right? Because that costs money. And then you also, the brand new roller coaster that you're putting in costs less to put in. So it was one of those things where it was like, okay, as an amusement park owner, this is a no-brainer. Like, why wouldn't I do this? Like, you're cutting costs everywhere, and I'm getting a world-class ride experience out of it for basically half the price. and that's what was so innovative and so crazy about this whole idea. And then when they unveiled the new Texas Giant, the execution was so well done on this ride that it was like, holy cow, now everybody wants one. Now I will say the new Texas Giant is usually considered to be one of the not bad, but one of the worst RMCs. Now, obviously, RMC really hasn't made any bad coasters. We're not saying that. But the reason that is because they really didn't take a whole lot of risk with the new Texas Giant. They knew it had to be well received. They knew the park had to like it. They knew everybody who rode it had to like it. So they really didn't push the boundaries too much. It doesn't feature any inversions.
Yeah, I was going to say that too.
And it it is more borderline floater airtime versus like ejector. And then obviously some of the elements have small profiling issues and stuff like that, but that's because this was their first coaster. Realistically, yes, they have built other roller coasters, but that was using somebody else's plans and somebody else's designs. You know, that's not going to a coaster and completely designing it and running all the forces and profiling everything yourself and then building it.
Yes.
So for this being their first coaster, though, it was very, very well done. It was a great ride experience. And you can still ride it today if you really want to ride RMC's first hybrid roller coaster.
Yes. So, like Gabe said there, this technique of revamping existing wooden roller coasters using their iBox track was termed the Iron Horse treatment. And now so after the success of this ride, we could make a freaking list of all of the ones that they've done this to. I mean, there's Wildcats Revenge at Hershey Park. There's Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens, Tampa. There's the Wicked Cyclone at Six Flags over Georgia. There's so many of them that this has happened to. So, in fact, another one is the Rattler at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. And if you want to hear more about the Rattler before it turned into the Iron Rattler of RMC, go listen to our Son of East episode, because that's a really good episode. But so after the success of their first ride, another type of ride that RMC was looking at building is something called their topper track. Now, this is an wooden roller coaster, but traditional wooden roller coasters design featured track that was made up of a steel strip atop a stack of wooden planks that the train would ride on. Now, obviously, there's a lot of problems with this because it's wood, and so constant maintenance, especially in high stress areas. So the topper track, what it does is it's a wider, thin piece of steel that's welded to a steel box that is then placed onto a stack of wooden planks. It allows for less maintenance while allowing the parts to maintain a look and feel of a traditional woody roller coaster. It is important to note that this is a modification to wooden roller coaster design. It does not make this a hybrid roller coaster. They are full wooden roller coasters. And this track was first tested on Tremors on Silverwood and a lot of the high stress areas.
Would you look at that?
I know, right? So it was put in sections that were high stress to help smooth out the ride and stuff. And soon it was on multiple woodies across multiple parks across the entire country.
Yeah, and this was RMC's original goal, was to take the wooden roller coaster experience and make it more reliable and more sustainable. Basically, eliminate some of the maintenance costs and repair costs of these wooden roller coasters, especially the ones that were aging and becoming dilapidated and becoming rough. Because let's face it, a lot of us pure enthusiasts do really love and enjoy wooden roller coasters, but they're not always the most comfortable experience. No. I'm not looking at you, American Eagle. Not looking at you. But you get what I'm saying, though. Like they are what we truly love at a roller coaster, at least for me and you as enthusiasts.
Yes.
But there is always, the roughness and uncomfortableness factor to them. So RMC's original goal as a manufacturer was to help eliminate some of those uncomfortable moments, as well as make wooden roller coasters more affordable to maintain. And that's why they came out with the steel topper track, was so that way amusement parks, if they have the world's steepest wooden roller coaster, they could retrack it with the topper track and still reclaim that title.
Yep.
And the other thing too is it maintains the visual appeal that a wooden coaster has, that it still looks like a wooden coaster. Not to say that the hybrids aren't also absolutely gorgeous, except for, I don't know, Steel Vengeance. This is probably the ugliest one. No, I just don't like that coaster, but
yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking like Wildcats Revenge at Hershey Park. You look at that thing and it just pops.
Yes.
Or like Area Force 1, which is actually technically an all steel coaster, but it just pops. You know what I mean? Even Goliath, which is a steel topper track with the bright orange track when it first opened,
Yep.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Well,
So,
I think of Gwazi because purple is my favorite color, and it's got
yes,
purple tracks.
absolutely.
So, anyways, yeah. So it, like Gabe said, it was their bid to help with preserving wooden roller coasters, and at the same time, it also made them really appealing to amusement parks themselves because it would, in the end, lower the costs. It would restore wooden roller coasters to make them more appealing to the general public, and then at the same time lower their maintenance costs for these rides, anyways. So, but with the steel topper track, I think one ride we have to talk about is Outlaw Run because it was their first Woody. It was their first ground up build, and now I didn't know this because I always thought it was Hades 360, but it was actually technically the first Woody to go upside down, and that's only because Hades 360 opened 2 months later. So,
really?
yes, I had to look it up.
No.
I know
Now
because
I have to look it up.
even when you
'Cause-
Google it, like Google's overview says that it is Hades 360, but according to RCDB, Outlaw Run opened in like March. And then Hades
Well,
360.
that's just not fair because Mount Olympus doesn't open in March. No, I'm kidding.
Well, yeah, and the other confusing thing is that Hades 360 originally was a Hades, and when you go on RCDB, it says 2005 because
Oh, I see.
yeah, so
I see now.
in what I think is like 2012 when Outlaw Run opened, Hades 360 was also being revamped into, or Hades was being revamped into Hades
Oh, yeah, look
360.
at it. Former names Hades from 2005 to 2012.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't open as Hades 360 until 2013.
I should put a little note here. A lot of the information that I have came from a 30-minute video from RMC's website about their entire history.
Yeah, I saw that.
So they said this in their video, and I'm like, no, it's Hades 360. And I had to like go deep and find the opening dates for these two roller coasters. So yes.
It's just one of those goofy situations where Silver Dollar City just opens before Haiti or before Mount Olympus in Wisconsin because of the temperature.
Exactly.
And so that's how they got, because they were basically built at the same time.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I see. I didn't know that either. Hey, look at that. You learn something new every day, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's a little side note here. I'm just looking at the picture of Hades 360 where the guy is standing next to the 90-degree baked curve in the tunnel. And it's like, that's pretty freaking cool.
It'd be really cool to do a track walk on that.
I know. Well, it's just because the picture of the track is like 90-degree banked. So it's literally like on its side and he's just standing next to it in the tunnel. It
gives you a lot of perspective sometimes.
Oh, it does. It 100% does.
So, anyways, another significant thing with Outlaw Run too was it was the debut of their first in-house built trains.
Yes.
So, the New Texas Giant and the Iron Rattler featured Gerstlauer trains. So this was their debut of in-house built trains. Because that's another thing with RMC is they try to do everything they can in-house. So that's their topper track. I think if you really want to hear more about Goliath, go and listen to our Trip Talks episode at Six Flags Great America. But that is another topper track and is one that we really, really love. And it has one of the best zero-G stalls ever. So it's a very good example of the topper track as well.
I've actually had the privilege of riding 3 out of the 4 topper track Woodies.
Oh, really? What are
Goliath, Lightning Rod, and Outlaw Run. The 4th one is the one that's at the zoo in Germany.
No, oh yeah.
That random coaster.
Random coaster ever. So
yes.
I suppose we could talk about Lightning Run really quick here because Lightning Run was
Lightning Rod
is when it was built was the first and only launched wooden roller coaster that used LSM launches, and it was this topper track. Unfortunately, it is no longer to be. It had very bad reliability issues. And so I believe now it is fully converted into the iBox track, and it has an accelerated lift hill instead of an LSM launch, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, well, so Lightning Rod is also no longer a steel topper track Woody.
Yeah.
So not only did it lose the launch this current season, I think in 2020. Yeah, the 2020-2021 off season is when they replaced over 50% of the roller coaster's topper track with the iBox track due to wear issues from
Yep.
the coaster. Lightning Rod was a very, very optimistic idea.
Yes.
Putting a launch, I feel like Lightning Rod would have done a lot better if it was originally just an all steel topper track wooden coaster from the start. Just because the problem with LSM launches is they rely on magnets, and magnets have a very small window for error when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to launching a roller coaster. And being on a wooden structure that's just not as stiff and stable as a steel structure, I think led to a lot of issues with that launch system. And then just the amount of forces this roller coaster would pull at its maximum launch speed was insane.
Yes.
So, I mean, we and you have visually experienced the difference in one night on the different launch speeds of this roller coaster. And I
Yes.
I do know that over the years, like if you look at the videos from 2016 of Lightning Rod launching, and then you look at the videos of like 2019 of it launching, there's a visible speed difference. Like you can actually see it. So
So
like,
RMC confirms that in the video.
yes.
They
Oh, they
talk
did.
about, yeah, it literally says in the video how they had to slow the launch down to like try and help with some of the issues. And yeah, when me and Gabe went to ride it, first of all, we got lucky because it was open that day and we got
Yes.
multiple rides on it. And then, yeah, we made it our last ride of the night. And we're like, that was definitely faster. We don't know what that was about, but we're not mad.
Yeah, and I think that was the biggest issue with Lightning Rod was just the consistency. Because some people get on it and just be absolutely blown out of the water by it, saying it's like the best coaster in the States, and it's just absolutely insane. And on some days you go to ride it and you just feel like,
What?
huh? Where to go? What is
Yep.
this the same Lightning Rod I rode last year? Like, and even
Mhm.
for me, in my experience, when I first went to Dollywood and rode Lightning Rod, I was kind of underwhelmed. I was like, this
Mhm.
is what everybody talks about? Yeah, the quad downs was good, but I didn't think it was that good. Like, to
Yeah.
be honest with you here, I was very underwhelming. And then we got that last ride of the night when me and you and our family went, and it was like, holy cow, this is the Lightning Rod everybody talks about.
Mhm.
And I think that was probably one of the reasons they had to just say screw it and take the launch out, because at least with a lift chain, it's a lot more consistent running at the same speed.
Mhm.
And then you also don't have to worry about your track wearing too quickly because
Yes.
it's running too fast. And
Uh,
yeah, this Lightning Rod was just it was a little ahead of its time, I think.
I think you're right.
Yeah. But that being
So,
said, great roller coaster. We had a lot of fun riding this. Now we haven't rode it
exactly.
since the change though. We don't know how that's affected
I'm
it.
sure it's still good.
You think so?
It's yeah, it's
I
got to
bet you
be.
it's really neutered, to be honest with you.
Nah,
There's
probably
no
right.
way a chain could get that same experience, I don't think,
I don't think so. I think
unfortunately.
my thing with Lightning Rod is I really love that it's a little bit of a terrain coaster and stuff. So I think it's still fun, but I do think you're right. I don't think it's going to be like the old Lightning Rod. So
Yeah, unfortunately. But
unfortunately, right.
I'm sure it's still a pretty good ride.
Exactly. So moving on, the next type of track I want to talk about, RMC unveiled at the 2015 IAPA. It is their Raptor track and their T Rex track. So I kind of forgot about their T Rex track because they haven't built one yet. But the idea of the Raptor track and the T Rex track is a completely steel roller coaster, steel beam, steel track, but it's of a single rail. And now the difference between the Raptor track and the T Rex track is basically size. The Raptor track would be able to accommodate a single train of single riders, and it would be more cost effective for smaller parks. It would be a smaller roller coaster that could fit in a smaller footprint and could be a little bit tighter and have quick turns and be forceful ride experience. while the T-Rex track would be able to accommodate a double wide train and would be something that big parks can invest for and get a bigger, grander ride experience. And I believe Gabe told me, now he can confirm or deny this, that it was theorized that their T-Rex track would be able to break the 500-foot barrier.
Yeah, I think that was just sort of a publicity stunt, to be honest with
Okay.
you. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the Raptor track had its setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
They built 8 of them, and some of them are really good. Some of them are okay. Some of them are very rough.
Yes.
And so the first one to come out was Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas, which I had the privilege to ride. Now, the coaster opened in 2018, and I rode it in 2022
Mm-hmm.
or 2023. Now, it would have been 2022 when I rode it.
Okay.
And so that's only 4 years, right? That's 4 years of operating. And it was rough. It was very, very rough. It had a really nasty rattle to it. It almost felt like it was running on square wheels. The coaster itself, like the layout itself, absolutely insane. Like just a crazy pacing, out of control experience. But what really drew back on it was, number one, if, like I said, it felt like it was running on square wheels. Just a chattering rattle. Just
Mm-hmm.
horrible rattle. And then the restraints. They really, really struggled designing a restraint system that worked on a
Yes.
single rail design. And the biggest problem is that's because you have the rail running through the center of your train.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to design a restraint system. That being said, I feel like an improvement on the trains would go a long way for the Raptor track, which would then in turn make amusement parks more willing to invest in a T-Rex track model, basically
Yes.
scaling it up. Because here's the thing, if your smaller model doesn't work or has maintenance issues or reliability issues, you just go to scale the size, the weight of the coaster, the forces of the coaster up. That's just going to get worse.
Yes.
So I think they have a few kinks to work out on that model yet. That being said, Jersey Devil Coaster, absolutely really, really well done. That's the more modern
Yep.
one that me and you have been on, that opened in 2021.
Yep.
And when we rode it, that was an absolutely awesome coaster. Now, I will say this, a lot of people complained because it wasn't the same level as the Wonder Woman, but that's because the Wonder Woman's such a compact layout. It was designed to be clonable and
Ah.
be able to be moved and placed into different areas in different parks.
Yep.
And I think technically that Wonder Woman, Golden Lasso Coaster, Stunt Pilot, and Railblazer are actually technically all the same layout.
Oh, really?
Yes, I
Okay.
believe so. I think one of them's a mirror.
Railblazer is a mirror of Wonder Woman. I do know
Yes,
that.
but then Stunt Pilot is also a clone of Wonder Woman. So, and that's like Wonder Woman
Oh, I
Flight
didn't
of
know that.
Courage at Magic Mountain
Mm-hmm.
is actually just a clone of Jersey Devil Coaster.
Oh,
So that
okay.
was kind of their intention too with the Raptor track, was to make it clonable. The Fire Runner coaster that they're currently constructing at Lost Island Theme Park in Iowa
Mm-hmm.
is also a clone of Wonder Woman Flight of Courage.
Oh,
So
okay. Mm-hmm.
that was kind of their point. The biggest one that they built actually this year was Yo at Wallaby Holland, YOY, because that's actually a custom layout and it's a dueling RMC. Now this is really neat. I want to get on this because not only is it a dueling RMC, but one track is considered the chill side and
Mm-hmm.
one track is considered the thrill side.
Huh.
Yeah, so basically they designed a dueling roller coaster where one side is supposed to be a family-oriented Raptor track with 0 inversions, and then the other side that duels with it is an intense layout with inversions that is meant to be a thrill coaster.
Huh.
Yeah, it was a really interesting idea. They just built that over in Wallaby, Holland, in the Netherlands, of all
Okay.
places. Yeah, it's supposed to be a really neat little build there that they did. It's just interesting the concept there, having one
Yeah.
side be like a thrill side and one side be a family oriented side. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing with the Raptor Track too, is it's you can be very creative with it. You can do a lot of different inversions. You can do a lot of very tight, really compact maneuvers because it is
Mhm.
a single rail, single seat per car design. So it is a very neat thing. I just think they need to improve on it a little bit. Obviously, the restraint system sucks, but maybe this new coaster, this YOY, I don't know what to call it. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that.
You're fine.
Um, maybe if that has more success and is more reliable over the next couple of years, as well as the other Raptor tracks, I think that's when you'll then see maybe a T Rex or two put in at like a Six Flags, maybe a Six Flags Great Adventure, maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Ooh.
That'd be kind of
Um.
neat if their multi-launch coaster was actually a T Rex
Oh,
RMC multi-launch roller
holy hell. That'd
coaster.
be cool.
That would be insane. That would be a good replacement for freaking King to Come, man. Holy cow.
Yeah.
But
We can
hey, you
always
never know.
wish. Yeah,
You never
right.
know. Anything's possible in the roller coaster amusement world, right?
Exactly. So, note here, according to RCDB, Stunt Pilot is similar, but not the same as the original Raptor prototypes. So, I must have a similar layout, but it must have been revamped somehow or something. I
Huh.
just wanted to point out that I've ridden Stunt Pilot and it's built in 2021. And, like, I think
How was
Jersey,
that? Was that smooth?
yes,
Okay.
baby smooth. So,
So maybe that issue was just with the prototype in Fiesta, Texas that I was talking about, where it feels like it's running on square. I don't know. I
yeah,
haven't ridden. The only other one I had ridden was Jersey Devil, and that's basically brand new yet. So
yeah, yeah. So I do think Jersey Devil Coaster is better than Stunt Pilot, but Stunt Pilot I did not have the roughness or squale wheeliness that you're saying on Stunt Pilots. The other thing I wanted to talk about with these Raptor tracks is the loading station because it is a continuously moving train. It does not stop in the station, even if it's just kind of an illusion because you're constantly moving. It does not feel like the line ever sits still on these guys. And then the other thing I do want to point out too is if you're ever a single rider at a theme park, a lot of the times they want to fill these trains. So they'll be shouting out one rider, and you basically get to skip like half the line once you get up into the station because they want a single rider. And a couple times, like I either got front seat or back seat because no one wanted to ride in them. So
yeah, I definitely think these are coasters that should have just an automatic single rider line. Honestly, like that.
yes,
Why
yes,
they
yes, yes,
don't, I have no clue. Being a single seat per car ride, I think
yes,
that's the other really unique thing is the difference between the seats. Because,
yeah,
like, I know we always talk about front row or back row, and a lot of times it's a very minuscule difference from the front to the back, and then the middle of the train is just a little bit weaker. But
mm-hmm.
these RMC Raptor tracks are very, very different ride experiences from the front to the back to the middle. Like every seat feels different. I think that's another unique thing about them is
Yes,
that every time you ride, unless you ride in the same exact seat every time, it's going to feel different. It's going to run different. The speed's going to feel different. The forces are going to be applicated to you in a different way. I think that's another reason why they are so successful is because they keep you wanting to come back for more. Like you're like, man, I
yes,
got to see how this seat feels. I have to see how the front feels. I have to see how the back feels. I have to see how car 7 and car 6 and car 5 feel compared to the last row. So it's just another little really cool thing about these Raptor tracks. I think there's a lot they can do with them. I feel like they're just scratching the surface.
yes.
I
I
really
agree with
do.
you.
Especially once a park decides we want a T Rex version of it. I'm very
Yes.
excited. We will be going to wherever that happens.
I
So
100% agree with you. It is, like you said, it's very something to look forward to with future roller coaster design. And I really hope that they get the kinks worked out. And like you said, a big park takes a chance and we get some awesome, crazy, out of control machine
who
with a T
knows?
Rex track.
Maybe that's what they'll replace the Eagle with when that finally decides to be taken out. That'd be pretty cool.
That would
I'd
be
be okay with
awesome.
that. I'd be okay with that.
Yes. So, the final type of track or roller coaster that I want to talk about before we kind of segue into talking about rides that we've ridden is this 208 retrack. Now, I mentioned this in our episode where we talked about it's a tunnels episode, and I talked about Tremors. Now, I was kind of confused on what this was. I thought it was maybe like a steel topper track or something, but this is something completely different, or not completely different. It's different than just the iBox track. And this is also different than the Iron Horse treatment that we're talking about with some other rides. This is literally just meant to be a straight retracking of a wooden roller coaster. There would be no reprofiling, there would be no new layout or anything like that. It's strictly meant to be a retrack. Now, the other thing with this type of track that it's meant to do is it can either be used in high stress areas on a wooden roller coaster, or it can be used to do a full retrack. But if you do a full retrack, it's sort of meant to like kind of happen over multiple years. So it's not like something you would do all at once. But what makes this difference is this is kind of a hybridization between their topper track and their iBox track. And it's designed, like I said, to also be like kind of piecewise. So it's meant to meld together with the original wooden track. And it's also meant designed so that the original trains can be run on this track. But basically, what it does is it takes the like steel top part of their steel topper track and places it, instead of on a stack of wooden planks, at basically another steel piece. So it would, it obviously would smooth out wooden roller coasters, make them have less maintenance, and also make them last longer. And then if anyone remembers from our tunnels episode, Tremors is going to be a roller coaster that is going to be fully done with this 208 retrack as of the next roller coaster season. And they're going to be upgrading from PTC trains to Millennium Flyer trains. So I think it's going to be a very cool way to really update some of the wooden roller coasters that we have out there. And another fun thing that I found when watching the video is they were talking about how the heck you join steel and wood together. And it's some kind of sewing process they do to meld them together, but they have to do it in what they call one-dimensional pieces of track, which is basically no hills, turns, or banking, just a straight piece of track to kind of put them together. So
yeah, it's kind of neat. I'm looking at pictures of it. Yeah, it is very neat because it looks just like when you look at it, the way it's shaped and everything, it looks just like a normal wooden roller coaster, but it's all steel. It's an
Yep.
all steel piece of track.
Yep.
And what's also really neat about it is now you could still you could do a full retrack with RMC steel track, but still run a PTC train if you wanted to. Like they
Yes.
didn't have to replace the trains if they did. The other neat thing is Millennium Flyer trains are actually GCI.
Oh.
So it's going to be a CCI retracked by RMC with GCI trains.
Yes.
No, the Millennium Flyer trains would be like what we rode on Mystic Timbers, I believe.
Oh, okay.
I
So
believe that
yeah.
is the Millennium Flyer trains.
So it'll be a very nice update to Tremors itself, but if it does really well, we could also see it trickling out to a lot of other wooden roller coasters out there, which would obviously make smoother experiences. And then just by doing that, it would make it not only more comfortable, but would probably make it a little bit faster. And then like with Tremors getting Millennium Flyer trains, they have polyethylene wheels instead of steel wheels, which will also make them quieter, which will just be nice for park ambient noise and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, the other interesting thing about this is so now traditional wooden roller coaster retracking, like what they did to Viper at Six Flags Great America, usually doesn't happen over just 1 year.
Yes.
Usually they do retracking. They start in the high intensity areas where there's the
Yes.
most wear and tear. And it's to save costs on just retracting an entire roller coaster. They'll just retract 300 feet of it.
Yeah.
Or they'll just retract the valleys at first, right?
Yep.
Where it pulls a lot of forces. And then they'll go through and they'll retract the peaks and get that all done. And then they'll go and retract the in between pieces. And then one year they'll retract the drop. And one year they'll retract the final breaks. They usually break it up over several years to cut down on maintenance cost. So now with this 208 that they're talking about, obviously with Tremors they're doing the whole roller coaster, but like if an amusement park wanted to save money and wasn't able to stick a significant amount into a roller coaster, they could be like, well, fine, we'll just reprofile, like I said, certain parts of it.
Yep.
And then next year we'll retract this part of it. And then next year we'll retract this part of it. And then in 5 years, it'll be a fully retract roller coaster.
Yes.
So that is very neat. I didn't know what that 208 track was either. I've heard about it and I knew it was a steel track design, but I didn't realize that you were able to basically run actual wooden roller coaster trains on it. You didn't have to go to RMC and say, well, now I have to buy a train from you because it won't run on your track.
Yes.
So
yes, that's another thing that makes it really appealing is that, like, exactly, that they wouldn't necessarily have to go out and buy brand new trains.
So. Or like what they're doing with Tremors and say, well, we would prefer Millennium Flyer trains because they're maybe a little more comfortable than RMC trains.
Yes.
Or we don't need the extreme restraint because this coaster doesn't go out upside down like a normal RMC does. You get what I'm saying? We only need a lap bar. We don't need a full lower body restraint.
No.
So
yes. So that kind of brings us to the end of the different kind of basically track types that RMC does. Over the years, they've kind of done all kinds of things because, like we said in the beginning, they started with this Iron Horse treatment, and that was working off a previous roller coaster's layout. But something that they've done with some of their newer ones is they've added a steel top to like the drop of a roller coaster to increase the height there. We could talk about Air Force One, like Gabe said, is a fully steel roller coaster, and it was a ground up build. Goliath was also a ground up build. And now they've done a couple of their Raptor tracks. So they've really been able to branch out. And then on top of that, I mean, they opened a whole nother workshop. They have employed so many more people now, and they still continue with that non-corporate business style to really, I think, make them a good company and really maintain workers, but also maintain a level of integrity and honesty with theme parks, which makes them very trustworthy. And you don't mind paying for a roller coaster from RMC because you know what you're getting, and they'll be very honest with you about that.
Yeah, they're definitely the mom and pop shop of roller coaster manufacturing. I think that's another thing that makes them very unique. Obviously, they're a American-oriented roller coaster manufacturer, so like we're gonna be like, yeah, America, bitches. But like, you know what I mean, though. But they're just they do a lot of good. They made sure their employees are compensated well. They do things differently, but in a good way.
Yes.
But that being said, I do think we'd be doing a disservice not talking about Air Force One.
Yes.
Because this is the pinnacle. This is the roller coaster enthusiast wet dream, if you will.
Yes.
Air Force One is just RMC's culmination of innovation that they have done element-wise. So Air Force One was constructed in 2023 in Fayetteville, Georgia. It's basically a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia.
Yep.
This roller coaster stands at a height of 155 feet and reaches a top speed of 64 miles per hour. And now on the surface, you're like, that doesn't sound that impressive. 64 miles an hour, that's not that fast. You haven't ridden it then.
Exactly, actually.
But so Air Force One, the reason why I say it is kind of the pinnacle because It was built at Fun Spot America in Atlanta, and the owner of Fun Spot is a roller coaster enthusiast at heart. So when he went to RMC and asked for a roller coaster, this is what they got.
Mm-hmm.
This roller coaster features a total of 4 versions, all of which are absolutely insane,
All of them.
as well as one of the most crazy profiled outward banked airtime hills of all time.
Literally insane.
Like I said, this roller coaster truly is the pinnacle of what RMC is all about. The Raven Trust dive is very whippy in the back row.
Mm-hmm.
You have the insane upside down 0G airtime in the 0G stall, as well as the 2 0G rolls out the backside that are just so whippy and intense.
Mm.
This roller coaster is, to this day, I still say Iron Gauzy is probably a little bit better. But every day I think about it, I go back and forth. It's really hard to decide.
It currently sits at number 1 on my list. I
Yes.
do have to get a rewrite because we're going to be doing it this trip. We're going to be rewriting Wildcat's Revenge, but I still don't think
Yes.
it stands anywhere near that. So it is a very and the other thing that was really awesome about this coaster is because it's at this park called Fun Spot America Atlanta. We literally just marathon this. I think we rode it at least 20 times. It got to the point where I actually physically could not take it. Gabe got one last final ride on this by himself. I sat down at the bottom and literally had to catch my breath. I was dizzy. I was physically tired because it was one of those things where so when I initially wrote it, I didn't gray out, but I had ridden it so many times, is so worn out, and had so much freaking blood just drained out of my brain, I guess. When we went through the pull out from the barrel roll, I grayed out. So I was like, yeah, no, I probably shouldn't ride it again.
Yeah, I think Air Force One is a lot about what RMC is, because everybody talks about RMC being ejector airtime, but I think RMC isn't just that anymore. See, when they
No.
unveiled the Texas Giant, the new Texas Giant, that is what they were. It was just all airtime hills plus a couple of overbank turns. Like,
Mhm.
that's what they started. But as they got more and more comfortable building these roller coasters, they got more and more creative. They got more and more innovative. And then you get rides like this, where it's not necessarily just the airtime. I think it's the yo-yo effect. Is that what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say? Where at one moment you're getting pressed into your seat and squished by a lot of G-forces, and then by the snap of your finger, all of a sudden you're out of your seat and in the restraint. Like,
Mhm.
just like that, and you're sustained out of your seat and
Yes.
in the restraint. And then you go through the next element and you're sustained G-forces being pressed back in your seat. It's not just the airtime, it's that back and forth yo-yo effect where it's like airtime, G-forces, airtime, G-forces. And that transition in between is another thing we talk about with RMC, where they have these weird, wacky
Oh,
angles and
yes.
different way they bank the track and manipulate the train just a little degree here and 3 degrees here, and it makes these ride experiences so unique compared to just like a traditional B&M, where it's just basically up, down, up, down. They take that and say, we're going to go up, but then we're going to tilt you this way, and then next thing you know, you're upside down.
Yep.
So that's why we talk about Area Force One kind of being the pinnacle of what RMC does, is because this coaster does all of those things the best out of the RMCs. The reason why I think Iron Gwazi for me is still a little bit better is because just the sheer size of it.
Yes.
Iron Gwazi being almost 50 feet taller, being a lot faster. The drop is insane on Iron Gwazi, and then the
Mhm.
death roll.
Yeah.
Sorry, not a lot beats that for me.
Is Zadra also over 200 feet?
Yes, so they have
Okay.
2 what they call hyper hybrid, or 3. They have 3 hyper hybrids. Steel Vengeance being the first at like 204. It's funny because like Steel Vengeance is like 204 feet,
Yep.
and then Iron Gwazi's 206 feet, and then I think Zadra's 208 feet.
That is funny.
So, but they are all over the 200-foot mark, which is where they get the designation of hyper hybrid.
Yes. Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, every kind of we're basically at the end here.
Zadra's kind of a weird one too, because everything now, obviously I've not ridden that. That's over in Europe. But like Steel Vengeance is all airtime.
Yes.
That's all Steel Vengeance is about, right? Steel Vengeance is just kind of a bigger version of the new Texas Giant. Where Iron Gwazi started to focus in a little more, few more inversions, but it's a lot of airtime. Where Zadra is not an airtime focused roller coaster. It's a very hard roller coaster to describe when you hear people talk about it.
Yes.
Because it is an RMC that isn't focused on airtime. So that's one I'm very curious to get on as well.
I would have to look through our episodes, but I think it was like way back in season 1, we did a bucket list roller coaster episode or something like that. And I think that was your pick, Gabe, was Zadra.
I thought I picked Hyperion.
Oh, maybe you did.
No. I did Hyperion for the non-B&M Hypers because I've never been on one that wasn't a B&M.
Yeah.
Then for the bucket list coaster, I believe it was Zadra is the one I threw in there.
Hold on.
Because they're both at the same park. They're both at the same park. I do know that.
Episode 24, Bucket List Coasters. You can hear Gabe talk all about Zadra if you want.
Yes, that's a very interesting coaster from RMC as well. Every coaster from RMC is interesting, but
this one really is.
Yes.
All right. So that brings us to the Coasters 101 episode on RMC. So getting into future episodes, we are slowly creeping to the end of our season here.
So I do have a question for you though.
Yes.
Surprise, we're taking another roller coaster trip next week. We have to do a trip talk episode on that.
I totally forgot about that.
So that's probably going to be our next episode.
Okay, guys.
Trip talk.
Guys, listen to this. Okay, we literally sat down to record this specific episode.
I'll add it in. Hold
on.
Let me add it in right now.
And first of all, the rack opened. I think tomorrow.
It opens tomorrow. Literally, as we're recording this episode today.
Yes.
It opens tomorrow.
Literally.
Now, obviously, you won't hear this episode. Well, actually, no, you will hear this episode tomorrow. Won't you?
Yeah.
So actually, it opens when you hear this episode, when it airs. At least when it airs, not when you. God, this is confusing. I hate this.
Time travel is difficult. Anyways.
As of the date we release this episode, the rack will be open for season pass holders to ride it.
Yes. So, and me and Gabe both coincidentally have off. And so we were positing the idea of trying to go there and ride it. And we were just like, logistically, it's just really not going to work. So he was talking about, because he has extra time off, he's like, I might be going to St. Louis. And I was like, oh, well, when are you going to go? He's like, I was thinking about next week. I'm like, well, hey, I have 3 days off next week. When are you going? He's like, well, let's look at how far of a drive it is. So we actually literally booked the hotels for it before we recorded this episode. So
yeah, and these are 2 parks. So Six Flags St. Louis and Holiday World are the 2 parks we're going to be going to over this little mini trip.
Yep.
And they were originally part of the roller coaster extravaganza as well as Six Flags Great America. However, we had manipulated that trip because we wanted to go out to Six Flags America, which ironically we also did the change before we found out Six Flags America was closing.
Yes.
And the only reason we wanted to even go to Six Flags America is to ride their Vekoma Flying Dutchman because it's the last one open and Sam hasn't been on one.
I need to get on one, gosh darn it.
So then we added Six Flags America to the trip. Then we added Knoebels to the trip because that wasn't originally on it. And then I was like, at that point, we might as well go to King's Dominion so we can ride I-305, which we'll talk about in the episode after our Trips Talk episode. And I'm like, well, from that far south, we might as well go to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. So then next thing we know, Six Flags St. Louis, Holiday World, and Kentucky Kingdom got removed from the trip so we could add those other 3 parks. And now I'm like, well, I still want to go. So
Of course.
now we're doing Six Flags St. Louis and Holiday World over this mini trip, literally the Monday after this episode releases.
Yep.
And now we have to do a Trips Talk episode on it because it's going to be in our season. So we got everything all messed up over here. We're doing great, guys. We're doing great.
So, for future episodes, we are doing a Trip Talks on Six Flags St. Louis and Holiday World. And then we're going to do episode 9, our most anticipated coaster for the 2025 trip. And this is going to be like the big one that's like 2 weeks long. And we have two roller coasters that would never, ever in 100 million years be talked about.
I don't think a single person has mentioned any of these coasters in the same sentence other than the fact that they're at the same park.
Exactly.
That's the only way these coasters would ever be related is just their location. That's it.
Yeah, literally.
No other way you could link these two together. Wait, are they both Intamins?
No, mine is a mock.
Oh, I was just saying, if it was an Intamin, okay, I don't want to spoil it, but yeah.
So then after that, we're gonna have a randomly selected battle. Which
hold on,
how did this happen?
Another funny unplanned moment. We pride ourselves in this podcast about taking two coasters that have never been talked together in the same sentence.
Yes.
And the one time we decide to do a randomly selected, just completely random. We did this 100% random. We did not pick these two coasters. And not only are they from the same manufacturer, they're the same ride model.
Exactly.
Two coasters that are compared to each other regularly. Finally made it into our podcast.
That's hilarious. And then after that, it is our season finale. It's obviously going to come out on a different date than I said in those other episodes, but our Coasters 101 on the namesake of our podcast, the Coaster Wars. So that still
who knows? We might add another trip by then. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll never know. Okay, if anything knows anything about our podcast, you know that we're hardly consistent. So this isn't a surprise.
I do want to get out to Valley Fair at some point. So who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. So, and with us not going to Kentucky Kingdom with our trip, I'm obviously going to get there because it's right.
Well,
I drive by it. Listen, I drive by it every day to go to work, guys, and it is so hard not to be like, I'm calling into work and going to ride roller coasters today. It's so hard.
We'll just end up doing a Trips Talk episode where I talk about a park I went to by myself, and then you talk about a park you went to by yourself.
Oh my gosh!
And we'll make an episode about it. Who knows? Maybe that'll be our first episode next season.
Yeah.
Hey, you never know with us is right.
Exactly. We'll try
always
to
be prepared for the changes around here.
Exactly. So we'll try to keep everyone updated. And as of this moment in time, this singular second right here, Coasters 101, the Coaster Wars, is still going to be our season finale.
Yes.
So
if there's anything we're consistent at, it's inconsistency.
Yes. So with that, everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Join us next week for our Trip Talks on Six Flags St. Louis and Holiday World.
And we hope you all have a great day.